Hope you are doing well. In the previous class, we learned about the letter in the roll-top desk written by Jim to his wife Connie, about how they celebrate Christmas with their enemies, that is, the Germans, in the middle of no man's land, and how much both armies longing for peace. In today's class, we will know what happened to Connie. Did the author find Connie? Did he give the letter? How did she feel? Shall we start?
The overview of the lesson, The Best Christmas Present in the World. This lesson consists of 6 components, and they are: the first one, before you read introduction, reading comprehension, vocabulary, speaking, writing, and the poem, The Ant and the Cricket. In this session, we will discuss the 2 components, reading comprehension and vocabulary. Learning outcomes. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to recall the significances or events of some dates that occurred in the story, list the names of the characters in the story, infer the importance of the envelope, identify the uses of phrasal verbs, describe a roll-top desk and Burlington House nursing home, identify the noun phrase and arrange the adjectives according to their order, express your ideas on the topic if wars are the only ways to resolve conflict, write an informal letter to your friend, choose the correct form of the verb. It's time for recapitulation of previous class. The author went to a junk shop and purchased a roll-top desk which was in a bad condition. He discovered an envelope in a small tin box present in a secret drawer. He took out the letter and read out of his curiosity. It was addressed to Mrs. Macpherson, Connie, written by her husband, Mr. Macpherson, on 26th December 1914, about how he had celebrated the Christmas day. The Germans came across the no man's land and wished Happy Christmas to the Tommies. Mr. Macpherson met Hans Wolf and talked about their families, works, and favorite books, and enjoyed the day happily, singing, dancing, sharing their drinks, sausage and marzipan, etc., forgetting that they were enemies. The two armies played a football match and felt that wars should be resolved by playing football match. Both the armies longed for peace and went to their respective trenches singing carols. Students, did the narrator go to Bridport? Did he meet Connie? Did he give the letter? Where was Connie? How was she? Do you want to know all these answers? Then, come on, let's go through the text. I folded the letter and slipped it carefully back into its envelope. I kept awake all night. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I drove into Bridport, just a few miles away. I asked a boy walking his dog where Copper Beaches was. House number 12 turned out to be nothing but a burned out shell, the roof gaping, the windows boarded up. I knocked at the house next door and asked if anyone knew the whereabouts of a Mrs. Macpherson. Oh yes, said the old man in his slippers. He knew her well. A lovely old lady, he told me, a bit muddle-headed, but at her age she was entitled to be, wasn't she? 101 years old. She had been in the house when it caught fire. No one really knew how the fire had started, but it could well have been candles. She used candles rather than electricity because she always thought electricity was too expensive. The fireman had got her out just in time. She was in a nursing home now, he told me. Burlington House on the Dorchester Road on the other side of town. Let us go through the meanings of some difficult words from this passage. burnt out shell, a building that is badly damaged by fire. Roof gapping, a gaping hole or other wide opening in the roof. Muddle-headed, mentally disorganized or confused. Nursing home, a small private institution providing residential accommodation with health care, especially for elderly people. Turned out to happen in a particular way or to have a particular result. You can understand better by going through the subtext. Having read the letter, the author put it back in the envelope. He decided to give the letter back to whom it belonged. The address was of Bridport, Dorset. So he drove to that place and enquired a boy where Copper Beeches was. The house number 12 was burnt completely. He knocked at the next house and asked the old man if he knew the whereabouts of Mrs. Macpherson. He told that she was a lovely old lady. It was found that Mrs. Macpherson was in the house when it caught fire. The fireman saved her in time. She was 101 years old. Now she was in a nursing home, Burlington House. Let us check how far have you understood the passage. And here is the first question. Why did the narrator visit Bridport? Option A, to meet Jim. Option B, to meet Connie. Option C, to meet his friend. And option D, to meet matron. So what is the correct answer? Exactly. To meet Connie is the correct answer. And the second question on the board. Why did she use candles rather than electricity? Do you know the answer? She used candles rather than electricity because she thought electricity was too expensive. The narrator came to know the address of Connie with the help of the old man. Now what happened next? Let's read. I found Burlington House nursing home easily enough. There were paper chains up in the hallway and a lighted Christmas tree stood in the corner with a lopsided angel on top. I said I was a friend come to visit Mrs. Macpherson to bring her a Christmas present. I could see through into the dining room where everyone was wearing a paper hat and singing. The matron had a hat on too and seemed happy enough to see me. She even offered me a mince pie. She walked me along the corridor. Mrs. Macpherson is not in with the others, she told me. She is rather confused today, so we thought it best if she had a good rest. She has no family, you know. No one visits. So I'm sure she will be only too pleased to see you. She took me into a conservatory with wicker chairs and potted plants all around and left me. Let us go through the meanings of some difficult words from this passage. Lopsided angel, with one side or part much bigger or higher than the other. Matron, a woman in charge of domestic and medical arrangements at a nursing home. Mince pie, a covered pastry case filled with mincemeat. Wicker chairs, thin sticks of wood twisted together to make baskets or furniture. Conservatory, a room with a glass roof and walls attached to a house at one side and used as a sun lounge or for growing delicate plants. Let us understand better by going through the subtext. The author went to the nursing home. There were paper chains hanging in the hall, a lighted Christmas tree in a corner, and with lopsided angel on the top. He met the matron. She felt happy and offered a mince pie. She told the author that Mrs. Macpherson was rather confused that day. So they thought it would be better if she had a good rest. She took me into a conservatory with chairs and potted plants all around and left me. Students, here are some words given in the box. Look at these words. Burlington House, Dorchester Road, on other side of town, paper chains, lighted Christmas tree, lopsided angel, conservatory, wicker chairs, potted plants, garden. Describe the Burlington House nursing home using the following hints. Can you do this? Yes. Burlington House was on the Dorchester Road on other side of town. There were paper chains hanging in the hall and there was a lighted Christmas tree in the corner and a lopsided angel on the top. It had a conservatory with wicker chairs and potted plants. The house had a beautiful garden. Let me check how far you have understood. And the question is, where did the narrator meet her? In Bridport? In London? In an old age home? In Burlington House? Do you know the answer? Yes. And the answer is in Burlington House. And the second question on the board. How was Mrs. Macpherson on that day? Do you know the answer? Yes. She was rather confused on that day. The narrator was very much eager to meet Connie. Did the narrator meet Connie? Did Connie recognize the narrator? What happened next? Let us see. The old lady was sitting in a wheelchair, her hands folded in her lap. She had silver white hair pinned into a wispy bun. She was gazing out at the garden. Hello, I said. She turned and looked up at me vacantly. Happy Christmas, Connie, I went on. I found this. I think it's yours. As I was speaking, her eyes never left my face. I opened the tin box and gave it to her. That was the moment her eyes lit up with recognition and her face became suffused with a sudden glow of happiness. I explained about the desk, about how I had found it, but I don't think she was listening. For a while, she said nothing, but stroked the letter tenderly with her fingertips. Let us go through the meanings of some difficult words from this passage. Wispy bun, a knot of hair that is as light as feather and fluffy. Suffused with, glow of happiness spread all over his face. Light up, to become bright with happiness or excitement. Students, you can understand better by going through the subtext. The author found Mrs. Macpherson sitting in a wheelchair. She was looking at the garden. Naturally, she looked up at the author vacantly, but her eyes lit up when he wished her Happy Christmas, Connie. And he opened the box and gave her the letter. He told her how he had got the letter, but she was not listening to him. She kept silent for a while. Then she moved her fingertips gently over the letter. I hope you have understood this passage. Can you answer these questions? And the first question is, why does she feel happy? Do you know the answer? She feels happy to think that her husband has returned. Very good. And the second question on the board. On which day did the narrator meet Mrs. Macpherson? On Sunday? On Monday? On Christmas Day? On his birthday? So what is the right answer? Yes, the answer is on Christmas Day. The narrator met Mrs. Macpherson. Did she identify the narrator? Who did she think the narrator was? In order to know this, let us go through the text. Suddenly, she reached out and took my hand. Her eyes were filled with tears. You told me you would come home by Christmas, dearest, she said. And here you are, the best Christmas present in the world. Come closer, Jim dear. Sit down. I sat down beside her and she kissed my cheek. I read our letter so often, Jim, every day. I wanted to hear your voice in my head. It always made me feel you were with me. And now you are. Now you are back. You can read it to me yourself. Would you do that for me, Jim dear? I just want to hear your voice again. I would love that so much. And then, perhaps, we will have some tea. I have made you a nice Christmas cake, marzipan, all around. I know how much you love marzipan. I hope you have understood this passage. But for better understanding, let us go through the subtext. She reached out and took his hand. Her eyes were filled with tears. She felt that her Jim had returned. She said that her Jim had kept his promise. He had returned on the eve of Christmas. She made him sit beside her. She kissed his cheek. She talked long and lovingly to him. She asked him to read the letter as she wanted to listen his voice. She said that she had got the best Christmas present in the world. She had prepared a nice Christmas cake, marzipan, which he likes the most. I hope you have understood. Now let us answer these questions. And the first question is, who did Connie think her visitor was? Her son? Her husband Jim? Narrator? Her relative? So what is the answer? Right, her husband Jim is the right answer. And the second question on the board. What was the best Christmas present for Connie? Do you know the answer? Yes, the best Christmas present was the letter which the author had brought. Students, let us go to our next topic, that is working with language. In this part, we will discuss phrasal verbs. Students, now observe these examples carefully to understand what a phrasal verb is. Break, the parts of speech is verb. When it combines with down, which is an adverb, it results in the formation of a new word called breakdown, which means stop working. Breakdown is nothing but it is a phrasal verb. So, the break as well as the down, these two words have lost their individual meaning, which resulted in giving rise to a new meaning, that is stop working. Now let us see another example. Look, the parts of speech is verb. When it combines with into, which is preposition, it results in the formation of a new word called look into, which means to search or investigate. So the newly formed phrasal verb is look into. So my dear students, I hope you have understood what a phrasal verb is. Now let us see the definition of phrasal verbs. A phrase that combines a verb with a preposition or adverb or both and that functions as a verb whose meaning is different from the combined meanings of the individual words. Students, let us know how these phrasal verbs are formed. These are mainly formed by three ways. They are the combination of verb with adverb. For example, break down. Break is a verb form, down is an adverb, which results in the forming of breakdown, which means to stop working. And the second way, the combination of verb with preposition. For example, look on. Look is a verb form, on is a preposition. So the meaning of look on is to deal with something. And the third form, is the combination of verb with adverb and preposition. For example, look down on, verb plus adverb plus preposition, which means to feel that someone is less important than you. So, these are the three ways in which the phrasal verbs are formed. I hope you have understood well. Read the sentences given below and identify the phrasal verbs. I reached in and took out a small black tin box. When we had got over the surprise, some of us shouted back. I looked into the eyes of the fridge officer who approached me, hand outstretched. I could see through the dining room where everyone was wearing a paper hat and singing. Now, let us identify the phrasal verb. From the first sentence, what is the phrasal verb? Yes, took out. It is the combination of verb and an adverb. Now coming to the second one, got over, shouted back. Very good. Third one, looked into. Again, it is the combination of verb and preposition. And the last, see through. Again, it is the combination of verb and preposition. Let us see some more. I drove into Bridgeport just a few miles away. The rum and the sausage had long since run out. House number 12 turned out to be nothing but a burned out shell. Suddenly, she reached out and took my hand. Now, let us identify the phrasal verbs in the first sentence. Drove into, it is the combination of verb and preposition. Second sentence, run out, it is the combination of verb and an adverb. Thirdly, turned out and burned out. Again, these are the combination of verb and an adverb. And finally, reached out. Again, it is the combination of verb and an adverb. So, I hope that you have understood how to identify the phrasal verbs and what are the different ways of formation of phrasal verbs. Let us know the meanings of phrasal verbs that we have come across. Took out, to remove something from a particular place or container. Look into, to discover or examine the facts about a problem. Turned out, to happen in a particular way or to have a particular result. Run out, to use all of something so that there is none left. Let us see some more phrasal verbs. Burn out, to make someone leave their home by burning it. Got over, to begin to feel better after an experience. See through, to continue doing a job or activity until it is finished. Reached out, to stretch your arm in front of your body in order to get or touch something. Understand this topic, the phrasal verbs? Let me check. Find out the word that means to begin to feel better after an experience. Get over, burn out, shout back, look into. Can you say the answer? Yes, get over is the correct answer. Match the following. Students, match the phrasal verbs given in column A with the respective meanings given in column B. Column A, 1. Take out. 2. Look into. 3. Run out. Column B, A. To discover or examine the facts. B. To use all of something so that there is none left. C. To remove something from a place or container. Students, can you do it? Try once. Now, it's correct. Take out means to remove something from a place or container. Look into means to discover or examine the facts. Run out to use all of something so that there is none left. Very good. We have successfully completed the reading comprehension and phrasal verbs. Now let us see how far you have understood these topics. Final assessment. Choose the correct statement from the following. Option A. Connie was in a pleasant mood when the narrator met her. Option B. The narrator revealed his identity. Option C. Mrs. Macpherson identified the narrator. Option D. The marten offered marzipan to the narrator. So among these four options, which one is the correct option? Can you say? Yes. Option B is the right answer. The narrator revealed his identity. The second question. Which sentence in the text shows that the visitor did not try to hide his identity? And the sentence is, I explained about the desk, about how I had found it, but I don't think she was listening. Shall we go to the next question? And the question is, find out the phrasal verb that means to discover or examine the facts. Option A, get over. Option B, burn out. Option C, shout back. And option D, look into. What is the correct answer? Can you say? Yes, the correct answer is look into. And the next question. Find out the word that means glow of happiness spread all over her face. And the options are option A, get over. B, suffused with. C, muddle head. D, stroked. Can you guess the right answer? Yes, B, suffused with is the right answer. The next one. How old was Mrs. Macpherson now? Where was she? Mrs. Macpherson was now 101 years old. She was in Burlington House nursing home. Let us see one more question. Do you think Jim Macpherson came back from the war? No, Jim Macpherson did not come back from the war. And the final question on the board. Pick out the word that means a feeling that prevents you from doing something that you think is morally wrong. And the options are A, huddle. B, dugout. C, scruples. And D, stuck fast. Can you say the right answer? Yes. And the answer is C, scruples. Students, here is the home task for you. And the first one is, do you think Jim Macpherson came back from the war? How do you know this? And the second one, how long do you think Connie had kept Jim's letter? Give reasons for your answers.